Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this. Hey Soul Tribe, I hope you guys are all doing well. Happy Monday, if it's Monday you're listening to this episode. Today we have a repeat guest, so it's Patricia, and it's a two-part kind of episode because we couldn't put all this information into one. We wanted her to talk a little bit about some different things in this episode, and we get into a lot of obviously astrology, but we also get into kind of the energetic astrological aspects for 2020, what we've seen, what she saw coming, and what's to come. We also go over all of the eclipses and the nodes and how that's affecting us and how that will affect us, because there's one coming up, I believe, on the 21st. I'll try to put those dates on the show notes. So we get into that, and we also talk a little bit about Mercury in retrograde and really just, how all of this affects us and how we can relate to it, and all this energetic astrological aspects kind of coming into play right now with everything going on in the world. So it's another astrology episode, which is amazing and super fascinating. And Patricia has such a great way of explaining things. She has so much patience. And I think if you're really interested in astrology, this is going to be a great episode because it's going to clear up so much, especially about the eclipses and the nodes, because the nodes play such a huge part in the eclipses. So we hope you enjoy this episode, and we want to give a quick thanks to Patricia for coming on her second part of this astrology journey, and we hope you enjoy the episode. So let's get right into it. We are back with Patricia Tabares, and we've had you on for an episode to talk about general astrology, that you do humanistic astrology and things like that. And we wanted to have you back on to talk about the chaos that is our world now, how 2020 was seen, and we'll get into all that. But I think I wanted to start first by asking you, like, how did the coming of 2020 look from like an astrological place? Like, did you see it something coming, or if so, how?
Great. Okay, so hello everyone. Hello guys. So happy to be back with you. And now to talk more deeply about the things that astrology reveals us, right? And actually, it's an interesting question because it's part of what astrology means. When we look at a chart here, let's see if you can see what I'm looking at. This is the sky today. So what I'm looking at in this chart is the constellation of the sky at present, with the planets in different signs, different degrees, communicating with each other in different ways. So that map, astrologers, we decode that map because that is purely energy, and we need to understand that energetic information and translate it into our physical world. So we are all the time looking at the sky to see what messages we get. Apart from what we read in natal charts, which we talked about that, it's more about your personal sky the moment you were born, and that sky reveals a lot about your personality, your fears, the kind of relationships you establish, how you deal with work, with money, so on and so forth. So one thing is the personal map. And then another thing is the map, which is the GPS for the world and for all human beings, regardless of the place where you're staying. So when we started seeing in the sky, and this was not 2019, it was not 2018, it was long before that we started seeing the approach of a series of entities which were explosive, so to speak. let's think of an adjective that can describe a little bit of what has been going on for the last, let's say, 3 years. Even though I could even look back and go to 2008, which is the year when Pluto entered Capricorn. And that was the beginning of a process that we are now witnessing more vividly and more clearly. Back in those days, Pluto in Capricorn was announcing the collapse and the end of structures, of, um, of institutions, organizations, anything and everything that had reached a point of rigidity that did not allow any further growth or any further development, and especially connected with institutions, governments, authorities in general, the law. So already then, many things as we knew them started collapsing, started dissolving. But that was only the very beginning, the tip of the iceberg, because it was exactly when Saturn entered Capricorn by the end of 2017 that we astrologers started seeing this kind of very ominous message, because astrologers, we also take into account history and previous facts when certain configurations, certain combinations of planets back in history revealed very iconic moments of human history. And every time Saturn and Pluto get together, they conjunct, we say in astrology, but they get together, you can see them very close one to the other. This marks the end of a cycle that takes around 30-35 years to develop, the end of that cycle and the beginning of a new one with a new structure, the birth of something that will become like the new solid infrastructure of beliefs, of institutions, of political views, education, economy, everything. I mean, the promises of a new paradigm, a new pattern, a new structure. But for that to happen, something needs to end, something has to die. So every time Pluto and Saturn conjunct, there has been, some terrible episode, usually connected with wars or with pandemia, you say in English, pandemia, yes?
Yeah,
Some
like a
sort of
pandemic.
pandemic events and terrible diseases, right? I can mention just to illustrate First World War, the Second World War, the beginning of AIDS, and for us in Argentina, the Malvinas War. So, and I could mention many, many more. But even the collapse of the Twin Towers was not exactly Pluto and Saturn in conjunction, but it was a tense aspect between the two. There was a square aspect between the two. So every time our friends Pluto and Saturn get together in some way or another, or they are connected in opposition or at 90 degrees distance or close to each other, something big happens, and it is a before and after. So back to your question, yes, we could tell there was something big happening or cooking, and to put it somehow. And because it is in Capricorn, we are still in this phase. Um, it promised that many of the things that were still standing would collapse or break down or come to an end. And this is economy, the economy. It has a lot to do with economy because now that Jupiter is in the middle of this configuration, now it is Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn, then Jupiter is also about the economy of the country. So we knew that economies, governments, authorities in office, everything that is a hierarchy with a head and then everyone and everything underneath would not hold for too long and needed to break or needed to disappear to give way to a new paradigm, a new pattern, a new structure, which is what is coming in the near future, but still not yet. We still have to wait for the big cleansing to continue. This new paradigm will bring what we are already witnessing and living somehow or other. It is the real and true globalization of the world in a more horizontal way, right? So, what we are saying goodbye to or letting go of is everything that is a solid hierarchy with the heads and the ones that are subdued or that suffer or become the victims of these big decisions. The patriarchy also that is very Capricorn like, very Saturnal. So the everything that is or has been in the hands of big male figures is now giving way to a new order. But we thought more in terms of economy, as I said, governments, politics, even education, philosophies. We did not see the virus coming, but it makes absolute sense. That is, when we look back, we see that there are many elements in the sky and where that announced the possibility of some virus spreading or some toxicity appearing. Or I mean, we in part many thought of maybe a war now, probably biochemical or some sort of nuclear war that would bring about illnesses and other kinds of reactions also connected with deaths and health, but not exactly the virus as it is, right? This very little but terrible enemy that is Pluto too. You know that Pluto is one of the smallest planets in the constellation of planets, discovered only too recently, 1930, in the 30s, and it coincided with the economic crisis of the 30s and many other conflicts that were brewing in those times. Well, Pluto is sometimes called the dwarf planet because it's very, very little, very tiny, very small compared to the rest, but powerful. It's all empowering. So it's very small, but very, very powerful, like the virus. And Pluto is about death. Pluto says something has to die to give way to new life, and the virus is doing that, right? I
Like a rebirth.
personally believe, yes,
Like a
yeah, Daniel,
rebirth, right?
yeah, yes. And I think that the virus, though terrible, is the least bad of all the bad things that could have happened, thinking of possible warfares or, uh, different countries trying to gain power by killing people. And now authorities are trying to save people because of the virus. So I think the virus, maybe the universe is wise enough to know what kind of enemy to send to awaken us. So maybe the virus is awakening us to the fact that we human beings are killing each other. We are abusing the place, the planet we are living on. we are abusing our authority, and we need to wake up to a new order, right? Which is what I guess the virus is somehow rather suggesting. Hmm.
Yeah, that
Does
feels
that
so
make
right.
sense though? 'Cause we're saying it had to be like globally, and like this is the best way to get around globally, because if it was like a war, maybe it was only going to be, two countries being affected, maybe the ones around them, but it wasn't going to be everybody globally affected yet. This was like the perfect condition for that global thing you're talking about. Everyone, anybody can be touched by it, and everyone can be touched by it, right?
Yeah, it is everywhere. It affects everyone, rich and poor, in the high and low. I mean, everyone is possibly affected, right? But also, if we look at the sky, and back to your question, there was and there is, because this still has not come to an end, we are maybe in the midst of it all. I mean, still the sky is really sending very loud messages into, there's still a lot to cleanse, to detox, to get rid of, to bring out from the deepest places where there's lots of lies and secrets and abuses at all levels and in every walks of life, many hidden things that, all the also things connected with sexuality, because that is Pluto too. So it's about unveiling or revealing everything that was hidden in the sort of underworld and needs to come out and to be seen. I mean, Pluto is pushing us to see what in the brightest light, what was hidden in the darkest depth, right? So this is continuing to come out so that we see what is rotten, what is toxic, what needs to be cleaned and really liberated, right? Because Pluto also liberates energy. Actually, it is one of the energies that brings the possibility of creating something new, a new power, because it makes room for something new by bringing death before. You see? So that is what Pluto is doing. And Saturn, what is the role of Saturn? Rebuild, reconstruct, to bring the possibility of new orders, new structures. But now, with Jupiter approaching Saturn more by the end of the year, December, when Saturn and Jupiter will be in Aquarius, that is the beginning of the horizontal order, as I was saying, and including what you were saying, Lou, about people being connected the way we all are. You can be anywhere in the world, but Aquarius says we are all part of a net where we are all connected. And also, Aquarius is refreshing the mind for new ideas, for new ideologies, for new principles. So now a lot is happening with also all the destruction that is taking place, all the suffering we are going through, all these very terrible things that I know are hard to live with or go through. But the promise really is a new order where now the power will be in your mind rather than in the physical world as it was believed or thought of up until now, when the real power was in the hands who owned lands, who owned petroleum, oil, where the money was, that there is where the power was. And this has been so for the last 200 years. Now starts a new era, 200 years where the power will be in the air. We move from the earth element, and this also we can describe it astrologically, from the earth element, which was all about resources, as I mentioned before, physical, material, solid, Now, this giving way to the new power, which is in the air. The air is knowledge, the mind, communication, interconnection, satellites, um, anything that moves very quickly and makes very interesting interconnections. So,
That's really
yeah,
interesting because the message I keep getting from the masters is, and it goes like it's perfectly matches what you're saying. The message I keep getting from the masters that I channel is find your strength inside. You have to figure out who you really are, connect with who you really are, and start living from that place. And now that makes sense because that's part of that air that you're describing. So it's almost like they're trying to initiate those new 200 years, right?
absolutely. And besides, see what is going on. I mean, now we are all connected and exchanging information and getting new ideas and knowledge. I mean, I know this what is happening between the three of us. This is probably part of these, special days when the idea of okay, let's find a way to talk to people, communicate with people, learn, and we can do it from wherever we are. We don't need to be in the same room, and this is happening even locally in every and each place where you are living. That is, universities online, schools online, all kinds of courses and museums open online. So this is like the threshold for the new order. And we are sort of, this is a rehearsal of what will actually happen in the very near future. Hmm?
That's so what is coming for the very near future? I think that's because we all know what's going on right now, obviously, but it's interesting that you're saying like how this was all there. And that's why I love astrology, is because you can see it. You physically, there's a chart that shows you, and there's no way to hide from that. You have to look at it.
Yeah,
So what do you first, let's backtrack a little bit with what you were saying. There is a lot going on now. So there's the protests in the United States and all over the world, where people want to gain, Black Lives Matter, and equality for Black people, and equality for everybody now, because I think this is waking people up to realize that everybody needs to be equal, right? Um, but just human rights, which is like something that everyone should have, right? And that kind of like, there's no more hiding. You can't hide from things anymore. Like, and I see this in so many different places, all of these hidden things and lies, and people hiding things, but not only hiding them but lying, and then these truths are coming up now. It's like dirt. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, the way I imagine it is like things coming up from the dirt, because it's dirty. It's not good things. These are things that were held from us, and that we needed to see to be able to like make a decision and be able to live peacefully, right? How do you think, like, for example, all of the protests, um, everything that's coming up lately, not only just coronavirus, but there's like, Jeffrey Epstein, all of that, and people still talking about that. How is that all? Do you feel like that's linked to the astrology as well, to like the you know what I
completely.
mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
completely. I understand. And well, there are many levels. And also, while you were talking, I was like looking at the different parts in the sky that talk about this, because truth is also that it's not just one thing. I started talking about Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn, because they are the protagonists, but not the only ones. And besides, all the secondary characters in this big play have a very important role, and they are all interconnected. We cannot speak about one planet doing its job and the rest just sitting back and looking. So there are many factors that sort of um, started acting at the same time. And so, well, I we could talk, for example, more. Let's see. I'll try to be clear, not to confuse you. Another thing that probably we should consider, together with what I mentioned right now, is the nodes, the nodes in the, which are not actually planets, right? It's like an intersection between the ecliptical orbit of the sun and the ellipses of the planet of the moon, actually. So there is a point, a focal point of intersection of these two orbits between the sun and the moon, and where the moon crosses that ecliptical orbit, we find what we know as the north node and the south node. In the last 18 or 19 months, the nodes were in Capricorn, Cancer. That is the north node in Cancer, the south node in Capricorn. And the nodes invite us to release something that is no longer vital. That is through the south node in Capricorn. So you see, if we connect with what I said in the beginning, Pluto started detoxing, cleaning, revealing, and bringing out all the dirt or the rotten stuff to heal. Then Saturn bringing reality, because Saturn is reality, what really is, what really exists and needs to be seen and revealed. So Pluto digs out, Saturn shows in black and white. The south node drains, right? I mean, it helps to release more and really get rid of. And that again, Capricorn, this rigidity in the minds of people, ideas, philosophies, people who believe this is the only truth, looking down at the rest of the people down the scale. So this really started, all this process that went on for, say, 2 years before the present time, right? Around 2 years, 19 months. It coincides with many of the truths that were revealed and could no longer hold or be hidden. Thus, the North Node in Cancer at the same time, the North Node is what we have to incorporate, what we need to include in our system, in our lives. And Cancer is all about being loving people, considering or understanding that we human beings are a family, that we need to take care of ourselves, not just the people close to us. We as human beings, we have to nurture ourselves and each other. We have to find the safety of home, not just the house itself, but the earth as our planet, home planet, right? So Cancer brought that awareness, and the the scene, if we consider this part of the play, of the theatrical play, the final scene before Cancer, the North Node in Cancer, gave way to the present node in Gemini, I will explain it in a minute, was forcing us to go indoors into our homes and be secluded there to understand what it really means to be well nurtured and fed and protected in the company of people we love. Many of us were somehow or other, we found ourselves in this position of being distant to the people we love. So we want them more, we love them more, we want to hug them, we want to have them close to us. That was the big farewell of this node in Cancer. I will now probably go closer to your question, Lorena. But this process that came to a sort of end in beginning of May gave way to the new axis of nodes. Now, the North Node is in Gemini, the South Node is in Sagittarius. And you know Sagittarius, which is the South Node, what we have to let go of, release, and we have to really clean out, is anything connected with um, uh, beliefs that are unique. This is the way I think. This is my school of thinking. This is my philosophy of life. And it is the one and only. And we are kind of fanatics holding the banner of those ideas, of those beliefs, of those schools of thought, of those religions, of those expressions of faith. Okay, now the world has shown us that there is no truth which is unique, and there is no philosophy of life that applies nowadays when we are in the middle of a big change with the uncertainty of what will happen next. So, what is happening is this is disappearing to give way to Gemini in the North Node. And Gemini is variety of ideas, variety of people, with your truth, and your truth. I am open to experiment with all these different views, different people, and to accept differences more readily. Because there's no longer one school of thought, one idea. These are good, these are bad. It no longer holds. And another thing that the South Node is letting go of is the idea that in order to know more, we have to go far away and find the answers in the distance. That is why, for example, among other things, we are not able to travel to expand our mind, to broaden our minds. Gemini says, look, open your computer, open your phone, and you will be connected with many, many different people in very many different places with many different ideas. We are all brothers and sisters. That is Gemini, the siblings. We are all together now that we understood Cancer family. Now let's interact with the people that are close to us, next to us, and who think differently. So now we understand that it's possible to hear women speak differently about their rights, their sexual desires, the place in the world, right? Because we are equal. I mean, it's not just the patriarchal view that was Saturn Capricorn. Now it is part of this equality that Aquarius is also inviting in. I don't know if I answered your question, Dorina.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And the fact that it does feel that way now, it's like there's no more hierarchy. It's about equality. It's about us all being at the same level and that we're all one. Um, I feel like it's going more towards that energy for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what we said in the beginning also. The virus does not distinguish between you have money, you don't have money. It's like we are all at risk. So it means we are all equal, same conditions for everyone. This is what the sky is saying. Look, same conditions for everyone. And on the other hand, it depends really on you whether you want to be part of this new game. Because Gemini is also about playing. It's about games and in a way experimenting. So, do you want to experiment? Are you open enough? Is your mind open enough to for this trial and error? Because Jupiter in Sagittarius, Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, also in Capricorn. This is kind of, again, all these rigid ways of thinking, ideas, philosophies are coming to an end to give way to a new normal. Now, what the new normal is or will be like, we don't know. Because Gemini says, experiment, see what happens, open up your mind, and be more flexible, right?
Yeah, that's it feels that way.
It
Totally.
does feel that way. Yeah. But then you talk about all that, and then there's more to come. There's like more stuff because at top of that, was there four eclipses for this year?
There are six actually. Uh,
How much are there normally? Like how many do we expect per year?
Normally, normally there are at least minimum of two, not less than two, and not more than seven a year. So it varies depending on each year. There are different numbers of eclipses. And again, I will try to be as clear and simple as possible, although
We've already
eclipses
passed
are,
one, right? We've
yeah,
passed two or
two.
one.
Yeah, two. Actually, I have my list here with dates, and I will have this with me because there are so many
So
dates.
depending on the eclipse and the date and like where everything else is, it's depending on what that one eclipse is, how it's going to affect come or how it's going to come into play.
Right. There was one on January the 10th that was in January, beginning of the year, still in the axis Cancer Capricorn. I will give you the dates first, and then I will make a general explanation of what that means and what that means. Warns us to be aware of, right? Then there was one last Friday, that is June the 5th. That was a lunar eclipse, same as the first one, a lunar eclipse. This time in the axis Gemini Sagittarius, because now that I mentioned the nodes before, when there is an eclipse, the nodes are protagonistic figures in the eclipse. And then I will explain when an eclipse is formed and how. But we need the nodes as part of that expression of the sky, right? Then there will be one, a very big one, powerful, on June the 21st, very, very near. And it is a solar eclipse. Back in the axis, Cancer Capricorn. So you see, even though the eclipses are sort of pre-announcing the spirit of the coming years, Gemini, Sagittarius, they're still reminding us that we are in not even the aftermath, in the sequel of Capricorn Cancer as part of the narrative of the last years. So this still holds. And this eclipse on the 21st of June, with the beginning of the solstice, this would be at 0 degrees Cancer. So there's a very strong energetic impact coming on that day. Then we have another one that is a solar eclipse. And then July the 5th, we have another lunar eclipse, again Capricorn Cancer. And then November the 30th, a lunar eclipse, Gemini Sagittarius. And the last one this year, December the 14th, a total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So you see, we are playing with these two worlds, Cancer, Capricorn, Gemini, Sagittarius. Yes, Lucia, you were about to say
No, it just sounds like the year's going to go out with a bang.
something of the sort.
Totally.
Uh, yeah, actually, I don't want to, make people feel afraid or anything. But truth is that eclipses are historically connected with drama, with something ominous, something terrible, something negative. But that is part of what is in the matrix, and we humans resonate with, because in ancient times, when there were also eclipses, it was thought that it was the anger of the gods or goddesses that would take away the light of the sun or the moon as a sort of punishment for the humans. And it coincided with facts or events that took place that were big events like floods or the death of a monarch, or a sort of an illness that spread in a village or town. So yes, it's true that it triggered some dramatic events that, together with the absence of light, made things even more difficult to cope with. And that we still today feel when there is an eclipse, because it's part, of the cellular memory, so to speak, that we connect so easily with those events. The same as what is happening with what I said in the beginning, Pluto and Saturn getting together, always triggering some sort of big conflict. So we today are suffering what we are individually or collectively going through, plus everything that our ancestors went through. I mean, famine and death and fear and loneliness. So even though our conditions are in general a little better for some, not for all, um, and even if we're not going through exactly the same things that we're going through in the past, we bring back those cellular memories. That's why we are so tired. That's why there's so much fear, anxiety, anguish. It is what you're going through at some level, but a lot of what is reborn or reappears in our cellular history. And back to the notes then, even though today we understand the astronomical phenomena, we know that there's no god or goddess or dragon for that matter. Normally it was connected also with a image of a dragon that ate the sun or the moon, and an angry dragon, right? Well, that we know in principle does not exist. Energetically it does, but still, whenever there is a lunar or solar eclipse, it is a very important moment of energetic impact. If it is a lunar eclipse, then your emotions that are covered by the earth, that is, let's go back a little technically. What is a lunar eclipse? We have the sun here, the earth in the middle, and the moon here. So when it is a lunar eclipse, we have a full moon always, which means the sun illuminates the moon. This happens every month. In the lunar cycle, we have a new moon, then 15 days later, we have a full moon. So normally on full moon, our unconscious is illuminated and we can connect ourselves more easily, more clearly with what we feel. And by making this light, we can work with our hidden emotions, right? So this is a good time for working on our emotional world. But what happens when there is an eclipse? The earth is in the middle, so it doesn't allow the sun to illuminate the moon. And the earth, by being in the middle, allows, on the one hand, the sun to somehow or other, with intention of illuminating your feelings, which are illuminated. So on lunar eclipses, you connect yourself with how you feel, but at the same time, the earth brings some sort of event, material event, earthly event, that makes those feelings, allows you to connect yourself more clearly with your feelings, with something very concrete, something very solid. Something happens and you have to connect yourself with those feelings, so to speak, right? So sometimes, the other day I was explaining this on a video, and I was giving this example that came to my mind then. It's when there's a lunar eclipse, it's as when, for example, you've been for a long time thinking, I need to clean up my bookcase full of old books, full of photocopies, and you keep putting this off, you postpone it, but it's there, right? So it haunts you, but you do nothing. So one day, something happens that pulls the bookcase down, and for some reason, the bookcase close to the window, all the books fall out of the window. So you lose not only the books you wanted to get rid of, but the ones you wanted to keep. Some very expensive, valuable for you. So then you start thinking and feeling all that you had put on hold and you had not worked with that you should have. So, what the eclipse does is no more time to postpone this, no more time to ignore this, deal with it. And it can be something connected with your present emotions or normally very old stuff. So that's why on lunar eclipses we feel so much on edge, because we don't know what is going to happen, but energetically we know something is moving there that you cannot control in any way. I mean, the fact that it is an eclipse and that the earth materializes, reveals it in a very concrete manner, I mean, doesn't allow you to ignore it in any way. But good news is that on lunar eclipses, the axis where the moon is, that will have to go through some sort of darkness or negative transition. But where your sun is, that area of your chart, because if you look at this in your chart, your sun is in a sign, in a house, close to some planet or other, and so is the moon in the opposite direction. But in that area of your chart where your sun is, it's the fact that you release that emotional burden makes your sun, your vitality, your energy, it gets a boost. So in that area of your chart, you're invited to shine. Something good should happen there. For example, let me give you an example. Suppose the axis is house, the first house and the seventh house. Suppose the moon is in the seventh house during the eclipse and the sun is in the first house. The seventh house is about your relationship with another person, your living partner, your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, someone meaningful to you. And the first house is you coming out into the world with confidence and with strength and vitality to show who you are. So maybe during an eclipse, a relationship goes through emergency into emergency or intense care, or it finishes or something happens. But because of that, that will probably make you suffer a lot, you now start gaining confidence with yourself and about yourself, and by miracle, you start focusing your attention on you, your projects, the things you had again postponed because of that relationship that was suffocating you, or all your attention was there trying to feed the relationship, forgetting about yourself. So during the eclipse, lunar eclipse, yeah, maybe your relationships come to an end, but then you have the chance to excel, shine, or feel stronger. Is that clear, for example, for a lunar eclipse? With solar eclipses, this is different because now it is a solar eclipse because the sun and the moon are together. This is on new moon. Every time the sun and the moon are together in the sky, we cannot see the moon because it doesn't receive the light of the sun. That is full moon. New moon, we don't see the moon, but it's there. So when the light of the sun disappears during an eclipse, our energy is drained. Our capacity to feel strong and alive and wanting to do things to show who we are, to embark on something and feel passionate about it during a solar eclipse, this is darkened. So we are drained of vitality, and not that bad things will happen, but you will not feel quite yourself on on solar eclipses days. And it's not just about the day of the eclipse. This holds for lunar and solar eclipses. The eclipse may take, can be, for example, a 1 or 2 hour eclipse, but the effect of the eclipse will be as long in years as how many years the eclipse took place, how many hours. That is, if the eclipse was 1 hour long, the effects of the eclipse will be 1 year long, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is more for solar eclipses. Lunar eclipses is more how many months long it will be. I mean, the effects of your emotions being drained could be 1 or 2 or 3 months. There is another level of analysis which is too complex for this conversation, which is that eclipses also um, come to some sort of end with the activation of another planet. But that would be too complex to understand. But say simply that normally what happened on one day for a couple of hours will have its effect for a whole year or more, sometimes more. So, and not every day, of course, but in that area of your chart where the moon is, for example, or the sun is during the eclipses, that area of your life will go through a series of important transitions that need to be worked on because for some reason this happens, right? And I was saying the solar eclipse on June the 21st comes with many elements that warn us that we have to be very careful with what can happen outside. Because, first of all, it comes with a lot of strength, as I was saying, because it is an eclipse. It happens at the very beginning, June the 21st, of the solstice, summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, at 0 degrees Cancer. So anything that is at 0 degrees has the strength of the birth of something. Like think of it of a delivery, a mother delivering a baby. When the baby is born, wow, big bang. So it has the strength, the force of a big bang.
And then sleepy.
And in the middle of the sky today, anything that is a big bang is too much. Give us a break. There's too much going on. So that on the one hand. And then Mars. Mars is an activator, is the trigger, is when you go into your car and you turn on the ignition, that is Mars. And then you engage first and you start driving off. But Mars is the ignition. And Mars is intense in a very tense aspect with the eclipse. And Mars is in Pisces, which means whatever action Mars takes has no boundaries, no limits, no clarity, no.
That's on top of the big
Oh
birth
my
bang.
gosh.
Yeah. And this is what
I'm gonna plan for a nap on the 21st.
you're going to stay in bed with your
Yeah.
covers over your head and pray. And the problem, to add a little more to what I was saying, is that because Mars is in Pisces, it is connected also with the virus and the spread of the virus. So even in countries where the restrictions are not so hard these days, I think they have to be very careful. It is either with a virus. Well, here in Argentina where we are living, it's difficult. It's winter time, and there's we figures are going up a bit in terms of people who have gone down with the illness. But apart from that, it is what you, Lorena, were saying, all these riots, all these expressions on the streets that come many times with a lot of violence and aggression, that is also part of this Mars activating the whole thing.
That
Mm,
makes sense. That makes
yeah.
total sense.
Venus is retrograde, which means Venus is, among other things, agreement, coming to some sort of accordance with others, and it's also money. So Venus retrograde is not helping economically or in terms of diplomacy. It is retrograde. And to add a little more color, not yet, but let me tell you about Mercury retrograde so that you also write it down in your daily planners and you consider, what to do and what to avoid with Mercury retrograde. It is going retrograde on June the 17th, a few days before the solar eclipse. What is Mercury? Mercury is communication, transport, commerce, circulation, right? Understanding. So every time Mercury goes retrograde, this happens twice or three times a year, sometimes four times a year. When it goes retrograde, the function that Mercury plays, which is this of communicating, understanding, transport, traveling, whenever Mercury is retrograde, this is somehow rather hindered or made more difficult. So, for example, prepare yourselves for internet connections to start not working so well, misunderstandings in communication. Transportation already is quite a thing, but things will become more difficult moving from one place to the other. And this will hold up until more or less July the 17th. Actually, you have to consider 5 days before, 5 days after, and that is because, again, too technical, but Mercury, when it goes retrograde, there's something happening before and after that doesn't activate Mercury as it should. So, from us around now, June the 12th, up until, say, June the 12th, up until, say, the 20ish of July, you have to prepare yourself for this and be careful with what you say, or sending messages, or if you need to organize some sort of moving here and there, papers, written documents, oral communication, everything is sort of upset, and commerce will also be disrupted. And everything now today, commerce is e-commerce mostly, right? That is another influence of Aquarius that, as I was saying before, e-learning, e-commerce, e-money, everything that we started hearing about and experimenting with now is the new normal. But Mercury retrograde doesn't help much.
So because you said there was an eclipse on the 21st of June, which is the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and also was there one in July, you said?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Again, tell you there's one more lunar eclipse, two more lunar eclipses. One on July the fifth. Again, Capricorn Cancer. So we will go back to questions of what I mentioned before, restrictions imposed in order to again connect ourselves with Cancer, our needs, our family, our home, right? But restrictions coming, probably also very rigid limits. Then November the 30th, another lunar eclipse, and the final total solar eclipse, December the 14th. Again, Gemini Sagittarius. But maybe we can talk about that later on. In the meantime, just for you people to prepare yourselves. When there is an eclipse, if it is lunar eclipse, okay, observe where the moon is in your chart, and emotions related to that area of your life will somehow rather be upset. Something may trigger with an event those emotions to be kind of closer to your consciousness. But there's something the sun invites you to connect with and make the most of it, right, in that area of your life. When it is a solar eclipse, be ready for your energy not to be so strong, and to avoid during uh, that week, say, to do things that compromise too much of your energy.
Okay.
Like, take it easy, I would say, right? New projects, don't launch them. Things that need big lights, avoid them, because the light is darkened, right? Is that
Right.
clear?
That makes total sense. Yeah.
Lucia, you look so depressed.
Okay. I'm trying to so this is all new to me. I'm trying to take it in, but then at the same time, I've been having a really complicated spiritual channel day.
That's why there's
It's
a
all
lot of
mixing up.
information going on.
Yeah, and then like we talked about when we first started recording, well, before we started recording, I was saying how tired I was and how I felt like the energy was just, I felt bombarded. So and now
I would
and
make
now all
that.
this information, I'm like, can I just take a hibernation nap for the rest of the year and just
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, because hibernating is what we have been asked to do and
Mm-hmm.
still are. But what does the bear do when it hibernates inside the cave? It sleeps the sleep of rebirth and revival for what is coming that requires new energy. So we are getting ready for something big, something new. Exactly what it'll be like, we don't know, but obviously, this is the renewal of humanity as we know it. Hard, doesn't come easy. But at the same time, aren't you kind of curious and interested in seeing and be protagonists of this
oh yeah,
new?
definitely. First of all, I'm a Sagittarius, and then I'm number 5 in numerology. So I love change. Like I'm the first one to go,
I'm the
yeah, let's change everything now. I love it. I'm a little tired.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel the
well,
same.
but we have to be tired. I mean, the universe is saying, look, you will be tired. You will be indoors. You will not be so much connected with what is going on outside, because that disconnects you from what needs to be done now. Go deeply inside ourselves to see what we need to let go of in order to be reborn lighter, fresher, with a new spirit. Actually, Gemini Sagittarius, these new axis of the nodes, is good. It's good. It will again bring kind of to an end those very narrow-minded views. There is only one way, and Gemini says no. There's many, and bring the young spirit in you, because Gemini is youth, is Peter Pan,
Yeah.
playing and seeing what else can be experimented, part of an adventure. And another thing to also consider, which is part of what we are going through now, Sagittarius is also about traveling. I said it before, but traveling far away. And Gemini says you don't need to go that far to experiment something rich, interesting, learning, visiting places around the place where you live. That is Gemini. You don't need to go that far away to broaden your mind. You can find it with your neighbor next door. That is Gemini. So that's why this is a very Gemini experience. I didn't have to, I wish I could have visited you in person where you
Yeah.
both are. Lovely places. I'm in Argentina, which I love too, but I mean, we can be at the very same time talking about something that circulates among the three of us, and we don't need to take a plane for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new era.
Do you see anything specific happening, like because you said it usually comes with the eclipse comes with something physical, earthly happening. Do you see anything particular?
Well, this June and July can come also with some sort of climate occurrences that may bring also more connected with floods, or this is, as I was saying in at one point before, it's not just the planets I mentioned, the nodes, there's much more. And Uranus in Taurus, that I did not talk about today, which Uranus entered Taurus last year. And Taurus is connected with the earth, with the resources, with what we eat, with our body, and with the soil, the earth, right? Nature in general. So Uranus is bringing also something new, because Uranus is what is new, it's a refreshment also, right? Actually, it rules Aquarius. So everything I said about Aquarius should resonate with Uranus. And but what happens with Uranus now, and in the beginning of this experience of Uranus in Taurus, that does not feel too comfortable, by the way, because Taurus is fixed energy, and Uranus is energy that keeps changing and moving and circulating, right? So they don't get along too well. But what Uranus is doing is also rebelling against the abuse and misuse of Mother Earth, of how we treat plants, animals, the way we eat, the way we treat our body. So also, as you witnessed yourselves, with this hibernation period, nature was there was a revival of nature, and animals and the skies started breathing differently. So this is also part of the same game. But Uranus in Taurus, with this ignition, because Uranus also will be um, in hard angle with I think I think it's on July the 5th with that one. I should go back to the charts and see. But still, there's a hard angle, so there's a lot of electricity going on, and fury going on, and rebellion going on in the people and the earth as well. But I think that it's mostly probably about the virus itself, not until the vaccine and mm, some sort of
Mm-hmm.
special cures are found, will this come completely to an end. And that won't, astrologically at least, happen until Jupiter goes over Saturn, that is beginning of next year. So I think that in the meantime, there might be some sort of the virus being transmuted or taking on a new form, or another virus coming in. I don't know, something of the sort, or some sort of toxicity. That is what I said, Mars in Pisces, toxicity, viral transmission. That is still uh, as part of the play. I wish I could be more
It's
positive.
so weird because we've had a few I think psychic mediums tell us in different episodes and in just chats that they see like this being a big hurricane season,
Mm,
like a lot of storms and a lot of
mm,
things happening,
yeah,
which would make sense then.
yeah.
Yeah.
It has to do with electricity, energy, waters. Yeah,
Hmm.
more along those lines.
Well, we definitely is going to get hard. There's things happening, so it's not like I don't think this is the easiest year at all for anybody. I think this is a year where we're just kind of forced to look at things. We can't ignore what's going on.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's a lot about what's the outside's reflecting us too, that chaos that
Sure.
we're not. we're not paying attention to ourselves. We're not learning. And I listened to this podcast this morning. I love Enrique Corbera. Do you know him?
Yeah,
I
of
love
course.
him.
Yeah,
And he's talking about how we're constantly dying, and like it's a constant rebirth. So it's
absolutely.
like, you go through these phases of your life, and I feel like that's so kind of similar to astrology, how it's all cycles, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about how we're constantly, things are dying in our life constantly. We're constantly forced to be rebirthed and change. So he's like, you move out of your house when you're a teenager, and that's like a loss, right? And it's like a relationship could end. You change your job, you move. Like, these are all things that are pushing us to change.
Hmm.
And I think the astrology shows exactly how this year has, you saw it from the beginning, from last year, from before.
Yeah.
And it's like history repeating itself in a way, but in a different way, right?
Yeah. Because the how always changes and surprises us, but that something along those lines needs to happen. I mean, as you very well put it right now, it's like something dies to give way to something being reborn,
Yeah.
and it is at a personal individual level, definitely. So those of us who are more ready to be open to letting go of many things, that's why so many things happening outside, we feel more secure inside the home. But it's also the fact that you are not, that your energy is not so active, is for you to stay with you inside yourself and seeing what you need to take out of your personal attic. There are some things in the attic we need to exercise, we need to clean.
Totally.
And it can be
Yeah.
part of your work, your job, a relationship, part of an aspect of your personality. Why not? I mean, I'm sure that it has happened to me too. Many of the things we took for granted about ourselves, now when we are in these circumstances, they don't seem to be logical anymore. So that should
Or even like we were speaking before when we were on the call, of like wanting change. I think a lot of us are feeling like, even I've spoken to people here, they're like, oh, I want to move, I want to do something different. Or your priorities change. Like I also feel like my priorities, not all of them, but a lot of them just feel different. They don't feel the same.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And
Yeah,
many people also with this hibernation and this quarantine lockdown period, understanding that being in contact with nature is so important. So many people are thinking of a change more in closer to nature and not, I mean,
totally.
four walls in a
Today
city.
I had my first salad with lettuce and radishes that I grew myself.
Wow, fantastic. And that was brought by the lunar eclipse.
It
Sure.
was. Maybe. Well, I don't know. When did it start? I started growing it in March.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's not the day of the eclipse. It's something is triggered and then the whole
Yeah.
cycle starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the change. But I think there's a lot coming that is good. The thing is, we should not turn a blind eye to what is happening and saying, it's not happening, I don't want to hear, because we need to know.
To
I
learn
think
from it.
knowing is power.
Yeah. Without getting sucked into all the negativity too, because there's a lot of, I think, people that are, they just they just want to generate fear in us, and they want us to be upset. And just the more we fear, the more we can be controlled and pulled down.
Yeah.
So I kind of limit what I look at on the news and
Yeah,
stuff.
me too.
I go
There's a lot of
crazy.
fake news, and
Yeah.
in the sky we can see where those fake news are. Thing is, there's a lot more we could talk about.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I agree. I mean, toxicity is also the news,
Totally.
because the source of the news is not always, uh,
Well
uh,
intentioned.
yes, exactly, or
Mm-hmm.
light. So yes, and it can very easily manipulate us, and with fear, that's the weapon you need. That's why knowledge is power, and also confronting our demons is power. And rather than be afraid and lose control of those demons, okay, fight against them, by bringing light to them. So I think that with light, there's a lot we can do even in these dark days.
Yeah.
There's still
And now, like after you explained all that, I understand how today I kept receiving like the feeling that this isn't the end, because I'm in Holland, and in Holland my child's back at preschool, schools are back to, people are starting to meet up with each other, restaurants are open now, like it's so slowly all going back to normal. So at least here in this area of Europe, it feels like, okay, it's the end, we're getting back to normal kind of thing. But I keep feeling like, hold on there. Like, this is just the beginning. This is not the end, by the way, kind of thing.
I agree. Yeah, I was talking about this with somebody who's in Spain. She was saying bars are open, tapas are back, and people on the beach. They say, okay, not so soon, not so freely, because the sky is still writing messages and sending them all
Yeah.
around. So yeah, I would be careful. We're
Just be cautious.
probably in the middle of the wave, and we need to, yeah, to be ready for. I mean, I think I said it to you before we started. My feeling has been all this while that March, April, May was the rehearsal of opening night, which is June, July, August. I
The
think
rehearsal. Oh, a lot of us failed at the rehearsal.
Mm.
you're doing great, and I'm sure that, I mean, this too will pass, and
Yeah.
we will.
I feel like I'm lucky, but I'm concerned about other people. Like, I'm concerned about people that are stuck in big cities in small apartments with like no nature, no like proper, like, I don't know, to be able to get outside, to get air. That's like, for me, that's sanity. To being able to put your feet on the grass, and being able to feel like, you know I'm a part of earth, I'm a part of something bigger than myself. But it's hard to get into that mindset when you're stuck in a little tiny apartment with like maybe two windows. I
Yeah,
don't have that, so I'm lucky, but that's the people I worry about.
but that is the awareness also, as I was saying a few minutes ago. Now you understand that, being because you want to be in the city where everything happens, now you understand that that is not the only truth.
Yep.
Jupiter, you see, you have to
Yeah.
experiment other things, and it's the air now coming into the picture. I mean, air will bring also the need for air. The virus, what does it attack? Your lungs, your breathing. Well, this is to understand we need to breathe differently, we need new airs, and we need air literally. So
Mm-hmm.
choosing a city just because I will make more money or I'm closer to the, I don't know, to the fun, will not make sense anymore. So that is also a shift of consciousness,
I
which is
feel
what
that.
this is, a big shift.
That's crazy how the sky can tell you all that you just told us.
That and like so much more.
Yeah.
Much more.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yes, but yeah,
Crazy.
I want to be clear and simple, but sometimes, I mean, astrology has its scientific side, so I need to go a little bit more into technical stuff, but I hope I've been clear enough.
No, this has been great. It gives people an idea of the energy that's going on right now and understand it, because I like to understand stuff. I like to like see it and imagine it and be able to understand like why am I feeling so tired, or why is all of this happening, and like understand how the planets play a huge role, and how it's the way that they interact with each other, and how they're in the sky, and how one little planet coming into the picture can change everything. And that
Yeah,
just goes to show how
yeah.
important every little part plays in what we're going through right now.
And imagine this at a personal level too, like
Mm-hmm.
knowing your map and understanding what the planets are telling you in different areas of your lives is really a great tool,
Oh, it's amazing.
because you can prepare yourself better. As I think I said in the first episode, it's your GPS to know which is the best road for me to take. But you have this free will to choose which path. The thing is that whatever the sky was preparing for you or you were destined for, it will come, but maybe the anecdote, the experience will be different. But you have the freedom to choose go this way, that way. But if the forecast announces a hailstorm, are you going to go out for a run on the beach? I don't know. Some people do, but I would be cautious about that, right?
For
And
sure.
or I would not take out the car. I would probably prefer to uh, leave later or use another means of transport, but not my car that can be badly dented. So if you know that in advance, you can choose whether to take out your car and risk it or take a taxi and cross your fingers. So that is, and what we did today was the same. It, yeah, terrible things are happening. Big life storms are, we are in the middle of them, still more to come. But we know that is happening. We can prepare ourselves better and be cautious. As you were saying also, Lucia, people in many countries are just breaking loose. Careful. I mean, it's not that quick, it's not that simple. It's for a reason that this is still not over. Because big changes take a long time to be produced and to settle down. So, whatever we are going through now, which is enormous for a very big change, cannot happen overnight. It's a whole cycle, it's a whole process. So, we need to accompany this process the time it takes. That is what Saturn says. How long, people ask? Saturn says, as long as it has to take. Saturn is Chronos, time. So time here is another protagonist. It is the time that is needed for the big changes coming, which at the same time, we were speaking about this to Lorena. Time has changed also into a different frequency. It
Totally.
takes ages on the one hand for this to be over, but days fly like mosquitoes. I mean,
Yeah, it's insane. It just flies by. I feel like one day's like 5 hours.
so you see, the also the concept of time has changed. That is also the preview of Aquarius. Aquarius is very, very, very dynamic, very quick, very hasty, and it's speedy. So, yes, everything takes on a different speed, but we should not rush on.
I agree.
That is what needs to be understood.
Yeah.
So you're teaching astrology to Lorena in Spanish. Are you planning on doing that in English at some point?
I am actually, yes, we're talking about this with Lorena, and I still do not have the exact days or a day of the week, but I'm already kind of giving it a shape. So very soon I will be announcing this. Yes,
Okay. I guess let us know and we can add the information into the episode when you know.
Or
testing. Yeah,
even just on our social media.
Yeah.
yeah, because I'm starting in July, not so far away from now. So I need to give it the final touches.
Are
But
you going to wait for Mercury to be out of retrograde?
yes, probably. I
I'm
mean,
learning. I'm learning.
very good, very good. Actually, I want to give it the last shape before it goes retrograde, and maybe I would have to launch it before it goes direct because otherwise I would have to wait till August.
Oh my
Maybe I
gosh.
would. I don't know. I'd see. There are so many things I'm doing these days, courses and lectures and sessions that. But I love what I do, so I'm more than willing to. I'm already teaching astrology in English to many people, but on a private basis. Now there's a group interested already, so they are waiting for me to say when we start. Looking forward to it, and so am I. I love astrology, I love teaching, I love to speak English, so very nice combination.
Yeah, and the group is good. Like the group we have is amazing. And
Very
it's
nice.
nice to connect with people, especially now when you're at your house and you're not really in class with anybody. So it feels good. It's kind of
Yeah.
a, and everybody asks questions. So it's like,
Yeah.
we always get into different topics too, which is nice.
With all these things that I teach, either this or runes or flower therapy, healing, apart from learning and eventually, of course, this becoming part of a possible job or something, profession, it is the journey, personal journey you go through. Because while you're learning any of these things, many of your personal stuff, I
Mm.
mean, it's involved in the process. So
I'm laughing because sometimes like we have these parts of the course of the Akashic Records where like I channel the questions that we're going to practice with the class. So the class is like practicing for the first time. And the last time we did a class with Lorena, one of the questions was literally for Lorena. And literally the class saw how Lorena was getting stuck herself with the question. It was just like this
It
really
was so
funny.
interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's like you're teaching, but at the same time, like you're saying, you're cleaning your own stuff out. It's giving you an
yeah.
opportunity to work on yourself.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like that about my courses. It's not just about teaching. I want it to be as interactive as possible, but more like a personal journey
Yeah.
uh, in every sense. It's not just learning here, but also here in your
Feeling
body.
it too, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's good.
You need to let me know about the runes class because I started reading a book to
uh,
learn, but obviously having someone explain it to you is much
yeah.
more interesting and nicer.
Yeah, actually, I already have the dates, then I will pass them on to you. And tomorrow I'm doing a live session in Spanish on Instagram about the course too. So I will let you know.
Oh, okay. Cool. Sounds good.
Good.
It's going to be in Spanish or in Spanish?
Spanish, but
Okay.
if there's a group who would like to do it in English, of course, I'm willing to do it. It doesn't take many lessons. It's 5 meetings. So, I mean, that's easier to organize.
Awesome.
So,
Okay.
yeah, that would be
Well, if
nice.
Thanks.
somebody's interested in one of those courses, where should they reach you?
Um, well, my Instagram or Facebook, Patricia Tabares. And now with Lorena, I'm sort of trying to organize my social media better. So she's going to give me a hand with all this. So
Yeah.
I'll be a little bit more professional in that respect.
You're already very professional.
But if they want to reach me, my social media, I mean, with it all the time. I answer DMs or whatever. Mm.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes for
Yeah,
sure. So people have that.
And we want to let people know that you also do personal charts, one-on-one sessions.
yeah, yeah.
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 Spanish
That's
and English.
Spanish and English, yes.
Perfect.
And now everywhere in the world. Actually, I've been doing this for many years now. So it's not that new. The thing is now it is only online,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I've been doing this for many years now. So I feel quite comfortable with whatever is digital.
Yeah.
So
Same
that's
thing with
okay.
us. We were just doing pretty much online and we're still doing online.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
That's
possible
good.
and it's fun too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun.
People are scared. I don't know how to enter Zoom. Just click on the link. That's all you need to do, or write down a password. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of fear, but people need to also grow out of that fear and welcome uh,
The
digital
technology.
technology because
Hmm.
it is already. It's not coming. It is
It's here.
money, mm, buying, selling, learning, everything will be online. It is and will be, and it's here to stay.
That's nice because there's going to be less people commuting, and that means better for Mother Earth and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. You, you don't waste so much time. It's
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
yeah, there are
Yet
many.
my days feel short anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
I
That
don't
is
get
true.
it.
I agree. I agree. But yeah, there are many benefits to this new normal. But social distancing, which is part of this, it will continue in some way.
Yeah.
But we'll see what it is trying to teach us too, because there's something there also as a sort of warning, right? Maybe in order to be close to other people, very close to other people, you have to take good care of the other one and yourself, right? In a sort of bigger picture, I mean. If you really want to be close to others, respect others, and be clean here
Mm-hmm.
and here and here.
Yeah, in your heart.
Yes,
Your
there's a
mind.
lot of that in this social distancing also.
I love
Yeah.
that. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I think people are going to learn so much from this episode. It's
I hope
very,
so.
very interesting. And I think it's a lot of stuff. I know myself, I'm super interested in astrology, but I know so many people want to understand it more and they find it hard to. But I think you explained it in such a,
I
very
hope it is.
straightforward
And
way.
yeah, if there's any questions or anything they want to ask me, they can reach me and I will very willingly answer any doubts or questions.
Oh,
So
perfect. I love that.
nice to be
Thank you, Patricia.
here.
Thank you so much.
You girls, and soon in Spanish. So, lo espero.
Yes.
Las
Yeah.
ganas. So let's have it too. That would be fun.
Yeah, that will be.
So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you, girls.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode. We hope that you enjoyed it and got something out of it. We want to thank Patricia for coming on a second time, so 2 times in a row, and really getting into astrology with us. We really appreciate all of the information and kind of clearing some energetic astrological information for us. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle's at soul_tribe_podcast. We're also on Facebook, so you can find us there under the Soul Tribe Podcast. We'll have all of those links on the show notes of this episode. And if there's anybody that you think might enjoy this episode, please share it with them. And also, if you feel called to leave a rating and review, we'd greatly appreciate it. It's going to help us get this podcast out to more ears, and to get our message out there, and to help each other grow and expand on our spiritual path. So we appreciate all your support, and we hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.